Hello, good afternoon. It's Friday, it's January 1st, it's 2021. Happy New Year, everybody, and I'm glad to have you here. My name's Alison Pitt, and you're watching Daily Star Trek Views, the live version of Daily Star Trek News, which, of course, at the moment is not daily. It's kind of weekly, because of the holiday break. So we've got some special episodes in the feed. Sorry, so if you haven't listened to or watched them yet, you should do so. And we've got next week off as well. So and then we'll be back in a couple weeks' time. But what we do have is this live stream, and we'll also have another one next week where we'll be talking about the finale of Discovery Season 3. So that's very exciting. So hello, everybody. There's a couple people in the chat. Nice to see you guys. We have a lot to cover in this episode, in this show. So, I made the decision because I didn't want to do a live stream on Christmas Day. Sorry. I've combined two episodes of Discovery for today. So we are going to cover the episodes 11 and 12, which is Su'Kal and There Is a Tide. So we've got two episodes of Discovery to cover, and I've also got some other thoughts. So we'll cover those too, and we'll see how we go. So if you have anything that you want to talk about, it's basically going to be the whole episode today is going to be spoilers. So anything you want to talk about with Discovery, please feel free to put them in the chat, and then we'll get to them as and when. So to start off, I just wanted to mention that I haven't really done like a year in review thing, but I have done, and we're not going to do that today either. But what we have done is Women at Warp very kindly invited me on to their year in review discussion video. It's an hour long, and it's actually here on my YouTube channel, so you can go and look at that. It's also on their Facebook page. So if you go to facebook.com/women at warp, you can go and see it there. And that was great. We had a panel of 5 women talking about what happened in Star Trek this year, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it was really fun. Keep an eye out for Kennedy's. Kennedy really likes Ethan Peck. So watch out for that. That was fun. And yeah, like I said, you can find that on this YouTube channel or on Women at Warp's Facebook page. And there's also, I did a little video and an accompanying blog post talking about some of the Star Trek people, personalities that we've lost this year. So if you are interested in seeing that, it's not an exhaustive list. There were people that I left out, but it's something to go through and have a read through or have a watch if you are interested. It's just sort of a way to end off the year. So, Happy New Year, everybody. It's been, I don't know, it's weird to think that it isn't 2020 anymore. And I especially because so many people this year spent so much time saying, screw you, 2020, because it's been a hard year. I think even if you haven't been personally touched by COVID-19, there's a lot of fallout that has personally impacted basically everyone. So, it's been a hard year, and I think everybody's looking forward to 2021. But it isn't a magic pill. So I'm wishing all of you strength, and January is a hard month anyway for people. So, let's be kind to each other. Okay. Wes Huntington in the chat says, did anyone scream Jumanji when the clock struck at midnight? No. I had actually just finished watching Godzilla, which, by the way, is amazing. If you have not ever watched any of the Godzilla movies, a good place to start is the current MonsterVerse series by Legendary. I think it started in 2014. That's a Godzilla, Kong Skull Island, and then Godzilla King of the Monsters. They are very accessible and very sort of modern and fun. And then I highly recommend going back and watching the 1954 Japanese version of Godzilla, because it is a very good film. it's surprisingly, you think that it's all going to be a dude in a rubber suit stomping on things, and it's surprisingly thought-provoking, I thought, and highly worth a watch. And they're all on HBO Max. So if you were one of those millions and millions of people that got HBO Max for Christmas because of Wonder Woman 1984, go and watch like all of the Godzilla films. You will not be disappointed. So, Zach says Rutherford from Lower Decks was in Kong. I did not know that. That was a fantastic film. I just watched that last week, Kong Skull Island. John C. Reilly is fantastic in that. So it's a little more violent. My daughter, who's 10, loves Godzilla King of the Monsters. Like, she keeps asking, can I just watch it? Watch it. So, all right. We're not talking about Godzilla, though. Today, we are talking about Star Trek. Sorry, I'm still. I like really fast ate a piece of ham right before I came on the show today because I'm still eating through the Christmas ham. So, sorry, please excuse me. Okay, so we're covering 2 episodes of Star Trek today. Episode number 11, which was Su'Kal, and episode number 12, which is just earlier this week, called There Is a Tide. And these are not quite the last episode. Next week, on the 7th of January, is the finale called Outside. So coming off the back of the 2-episode Mirror Universe ones where we said goodbye to Giorgio, this is like the beginning of the end. I think I talked about that last time. And what a surprise to have one of those be a holodeck episode. That made me so happy, so happy. I mean, it wasn't a holodeck on the Discovery, but I think we talked about this in a live show a few weeks back. That okay, holodecks on Discovery are canon. When are we getting a holodeck episode? Because holodeck episodes are like a hallmark, like a trademark of Star Trek, you know. And I don't know if they deliberately put that in there, you know, to just get nerds like me excited. I was so excited to see a holodeck episode. I would have liked to see a little bit more, like, I don't know, it was very the end of Labyrinth to me, which is cool. Labyrinth is one of my favorite films, like, on the planet. And I talked a little bit on the show a couple times about Kingston Pen, which is where that episode was filmed. And it was really cool to see how they used that architecture, but it did come across like, oh, they're copying Labyrinth a little bit. But still, it was fantastic and got me so excited to see a holodeck episode. And it's kind of holodeck gone rogue, right? It's not quite, I don't quite understand exactly what happened there, but it was the holodeck was very neat. My favorite. Oh, I should stop for a second and explain. So these 2 episodes, there is a lot, and I can't possibly cover it all in half an hour. So I've got some key sort of production-y things that I'm going to talk about specifically on the episode, and then I have a couple random thoughts, like, you know, like I like to do. Having said that, I've already geeked out about the holodeck episode, which is actually, yes, I love it. I also think it's actually a really significant development for Discovery. Discovery has they've done on the surface callbacks. They've been, you know, reimagining characters that we already know from canon. They've been reconnecting things to events that we've seen in previous Star Trek series. But in terms of their production and how they produce the show and the feel of the show, they kind of threw everything out that they knew before, like from the TNG era. So for me, I think there being a holodeck episode in Discovery is a really significant development that for me is optimistic for the future, because that kind of storytelling is something that I feel we've been missing. Anyway, I will go. I don't want to go on about the holodeck episode too much. My favorite part of Su'Kal was the fact that they brought the burn, which Discovery and modern Star Trek have a have an issue of trying to make the story too big. It's always galaxy threatening, universe threatening. I mean, even Picard, which started off as like this cool little story, ended up being this like literally outside of a dimension. We could talk about that on another day. Um, I love the fact that the source of the source of the burn is like a person who's in pain. I think that um, is a really great metaphor, a really great way to tell a story because it really puts compassion um, at front and center in that story. And we just need more compassion in the world. So for me, they brought what was at the start like this basically galaxy destroying thing where they killed millions of people, right? Um, and I was kind of worried that they were gonna find that it was some really big story that had caused all this, and to find that the source was really just one person's pain, in extenuating circumstances, um, I think is wonderful. I've been advocating for a return to small storytelling in Star Trek for a while, and I kind of feel like that kinda hit that note for me, so I was really pleased with that. Um Right. Um, Sorry, I'm just having a look at the chat to make sure I haven't missed anything. Yes. Um, okay. I'm gonna move on to There Is a Tide, and that's this week's episode. And in terms of, I loved this episode. There was a lot to unpack there, and my favorite part of it, honestly, was the negotiations between Osyraa and Admiral Vance. I found that really I'm still chewing on that whole scene. Um, I don't know how you guys feel about it. I think that Osyraa is genuine in her desire to unite with the Federation. I do think she's kind of a terrible person. I think that she would use an alliance with the Federation for nefarious purposes. I don't trust her at all, but I do think she's genuine, and I do think that I do believe her when she says that the sort of the will of the Orion people is behind that sort of um, unification, to borrow a term. And also, I believe that they would enter into that faithfully and try and, reform some of the practices that they've done. So I kind of, you could feel the tension in that scene because Vance wants peace too. Obviously, we all want peace there. Um, but we don't trust her, and for good reason. She's awful. She will say, "We're conducting military exercises," and then what they are is doing a show of force. She, on one hand, says, "We're using the best scientists in the galaxy to help solve the famine on Quajon," except that she's extorting them for that solution. And the most extreme example of that, of course, is Aurelio, who has only ever she's like handpicked him and only ever exposed him to the good side, the part where she's saying, "Look at all these things that we're doing. We're so advanced. We're helping people," and she's not allowed him to see the extortion side of it, where it's like, um, it goes back to this Labyrinth again. At the end of Labyrinth, he's like, "Obey me, do everything I ask, and I will be your slave." This is what Osyraa is. She said, "As long as you give me everything that I ask for, I will do anything you want." And it doesn't make any sense. It's a horrible, abusive tactic. And because of that, Vance doesn't trust her. We don't trust her. But I do think she's genuine. I thought it was really, really interesting of him when he said, "All right." He read that fine print real fast, by the way, on that little holo screen. Um, his calling her bluff and saying, "All right, this is good, but we can't just let all of the atrocities that you've committed stand. You need to stand trial for that in the way that the Federation would do." Um, he called her bluff, and that was wonderful. He knows that at the heart of it for her is her ego, and the one thing she'll never give up is her ego, because look at her. I literally have a picture of Osyraa up on my computer right now because I was looking at her. It's this picture where she's sitting in the captain's chair just looking for all the world, like the cat that ate the canary, right? Anyway, the dynamic, those actors were fantastic. I loved the presence of Eli. So it's so weird the way they use hollows to like for like interrogation. It was cool. And it kind of made me start thinking a lot about how do you rebuild a federation? And it's all about trust, right? She presents a really good argument. She presents really good terms, but we don't trust her for very many reasons. And that's the same for the Orion Syndicate. That's going to be the same for any civilization that seeks to join the Federation. It happened in previous iterations of Star Trek, but also now, especially since the Federation sort of has fallen to ruin, you need to be able to trust those people because they have a great amount of resources compared to everybody else. And they're extremely vulnerable. So anyway, I've been chewing on that whole conversation a lot. That was really the focus of There Is a Tide for me. But I want to move on from that and talk about the DOT-23s and how brilliant I think that that those little dudes from a writing and production standpoint, this is one of the first things that I've seen in Discovery where I thought, well, that was clever. Too often they seem to do a thing where they think, wow, I bet they thought they were clever when they did that. The DOT-23s was actually kind of masterful, and I'm impressed. Here's why. The DOT-23s feature in the opening credits, which was dumb. I thought it doesn't look right. Here's these weird cartoony like little dudes. I mean, we all thought the DOT-7s were weird in Discovery Season 2. Like, where did these things come from? Because they don't exist in other Star Trek that we know. And to have them, these little cartoon robot things, be in the credits was weird to me. It was strange. And then I thought, I don't know, maybe they're trying to appeal to kids, because Discovery is such a kids show. They seemed like porgs, aggressively cute for no good reason. And then in the first several episodes, what we saw, and I don't know if I mentioned it on this show, but I talked about it a lot, around here, was the DOT-23s were aggressively ignored for the first several episodes. They were actually on Discovery 2, which presumably, I don't know if which dot version they were, but we saw them, scooting around in the mess hall, and we saw them in Federation headquarters, like bloody everywhere. And no one ever said anything to them. No one ever acknowledged them. And I actually thought that was kind of anti-Star Trek. And I know that they're little bots, but we had an android serving in the Federation, right? In a pretty pivotal role. He was a captain at one point. To have these humanoid, I mean, they're made, they don't look like Roombas. And we've had the exocomps too, like to have these things running around doing all this menial tasks, completely ignored, felt like house elves or something else. And it was conspicuous to me that the kind of jobs they were doing. And then I got used to it. And I can't, like, I'll have to watch the series again to find out whether they really disappeared from the background or whether I just started tuning them out from the background. Because by the time we got to this episode, I'd completely forgotten that they existed. And then all of a sudden they peek out from behind the little thing and I'm like, oh, it's those guys. They set you up as a viewer to completely discount these things as anything but background. And of course, they're doing the same thing in universe because they they totally take advantage of the fact that everyone ignores the dots to preserve the sphere data in the dots. Like, that's brilliant. And when they talked about like, oh, there's this weird Buster Keaton thing running, and they're like, shut it down. It's a cool little mechanism, and of course, it leverages the fact that everyone ignores these little dots to be the thorn in the side of Osyraa, to be the thorn in the side of the Emerald Chain. And I just think that was wonderful because it's one of those mechanisms that they do in production where you are also you're experiencing the same sort of emotion and manipulation as the people in the show are, and that helps for me, helps my immersion, and helps me tie to what's happening on screen. So I can't talk. I mean, there's I still think they're kind of like goofy looking, and I still think they're a bit silly, but that the way that they presented and the way that they became pivotal in the end is actually kind of masterful, and well done to the writers on that one. I just hope that was deliberate because I thought it was very, very cool. Anyway, sorry, slight rant. Right, I'm going to take a break really quick and look at the chat and see what everybody's doing. There you go. So Zach, I assume you're talking about Osyraa. I really hope she's genuine. Hosen Zarfungal follows up with, shooting Rin in the face tells me otherwise. Well, this is why I think that conversation is so interesting. I genuinely think she wants an alliance. I think that's a genuine desire because they are running out of dilithium and the Federation has dilithium. I genuinely think she wants it. I do also think that as soon as she has it, she's going to work whatever system they come up with to make sure that she is in charge. And she's going to do that through subterfuge, and she's probably going to murder people. But I do think it's a genuine desire. Zach, you're a genius. I completely forgot about short treks. That's Ephraim and Dot. I completely forgot about that, and that was the short treks ended before Picard. Yeah, they totally. Oh, interesting, because Ephraim and Dot was actually a dot and a tardigrade. And I don't know what else to say. Woo! They're talking about tardigrades now as well, which is kind of weird, right? So Aurelio's like, yeah, we'll just grow tardigrade. We'll extract the DNA and we'll grow another one. I kind of hope it ends up being like the one with the whales, except that they're growing tardigrades because they're now extinct. That'd be cool. Right. Okay, so I'm going to move on to my other thoughts. I'm sorry I keep waggling my pen at you. I've got my notes here. I have two really important things that I want to say, and then a whole bunch of stuff that is not important at all. I'm going to start off with saying that there was a scene in There Is a Tide that, for the first time possibly ever in Discovery, really hit me in the feels. I've had difficulty really bonding with the characters, shall we say. There were characters that I liked. Even Giorgio departing was kind of sad, but I was like, eh. The scene with Stamets and Burnham, where she restrains him and then blows him out a window, I thought was really, really beautiful. It was really hard for me to watch. I'm getting emotional now as well, because for her, it's significant because they've challenged her before. Like, if you have to do this, would you be able, because you hesitated with Arium. And it's the same thing. It's not the same thing, but it's analogous to. And Stamets's whole, like, I mean, he's completely compromised by the fact that his whole family is down on this radioactive dilithium planet. And Burnham made the hard call, and she was absolutely correct. But watching that unfold and watching that relationship between the two of them was absolutely heartbreaking. And everybody's going to be fine. I'm telling myself that everyone's going to be fine. They're going to rescue everybody, and everybody's going to be fine. So that was my first important thing to talk about. Now I'm going to talk about stupid stuff. So we got to see Doug Jones's face and Kenneth Mitchell's face. This is exciting to me. I don't know. The makeup department got the time off, which was wonderful. We knew Kenneth Mitchell was going to turn up. He had already previously said that he was going to be a human, and I love this role for him. It was really touching, and I'm looking forward to seeing, because like I said before, he's only ever seen the really good side of Osyraa, and he's useful for humanizing the Orions, because I believe Osyraa when she says that the will of their people is behind unification. And if a lot of them have been conditioned the way that Aurelio has, I think that there's hope there. If they can get rid of some of the bad apples like Osyraa, I think there's hope there for actual peace, which would be great. When they showed Doug Jones's face at the start of Sukhal, I was like, oh, it's Doug Jones. Because he never gets to show his face. He's always under monster makeup. And that was wonderful. So that was great for Doug Jones. Speaking of the makeup, since when did Kelpians get beards? Because that old guy, the really old, I don't remember what they called him, the elder. I have never seen a lick of hair on any Kelpian. I mean, we've seen what, 4? But that dude had a beard. I thought that was funny. Trying to figure out how I want to tackle the rest of these. Number one, do they not have any? They have not have any provision at Federation HQ for a ship coming in hot like that. They have no provision for quarantine or anything like that. Like a space airlock. That it was like I'm like, they've got to know that that's a possibility. You know, that somebody could get through. Whatever. That's one that I'll just choose to accept. And then I have 2 comments about Burnham crawling around in the Jeffries tubes. Number 1, strong Die Hard vibes from that whole scene with the lack of shoes and the crawling around, talking on the comms. I can't decide if I love that or hate that, but it was fun, especially because these episodes aired around Christmas time. It was kind of wonderful. And I thought back to something. So Burnham calls her mom and is like, Mayday, right? Come and help, please. And I thought back to something that Georgiou said, and it's absolute, and it's true. And I don't feel like Burnham has learned this lesson yet. They absolutely do need help. The Co-op Malad is real into like lost causes, and they need help from from someone outside, which is funny because of course the next episode and the final episode is called Outside. And of course, you know, they made a big deal about the fact that the Romulans and the Vulcans now on Ni'Var, they're no longer with the Federation. And it's possible that that's alluding to that they need outside help again. There would be some cool symmetry to that if the Romulans and Vulcans having unified, which was a huge project for the Federation, whether they would be the ones to come and help. That would be kind of cool. That's beside the point. She calls her mom and says, I need help. And then proceeds to like really lay it on thick. Like, if you don't come and help us now, I may never speak to you ever again. And it reminded me of the scene where Georgiou and Burnham are talking to each other, and Georgiou just looks at her in her face and says, you just need everybody else to bend to your will. She's manipulative. She really, really is. And she did it again. It's enough. I know she was desperate. I'm not criticizing Burnham because she would try to use everybody, anything she can. They're desperate. But it was odd to me that we see that again, where she actually uses emotional manipulation to get people to do what she wants. And so it doesn't mean anything, but it called back to that. That was a really huge moment for me, and my relationship with the character of Burnham, having Georgiou point that out to her. And we got to see it on display again today. Right. I'm putting my pen down. I'm going to take a drink. The last thing I want to talk about, and I know we're right at time, so hopefully I'm not going to rant about it for too long, but I will rant a little bit. Something that happened over the break, that I didn't get a chance to talk about on the last live stream. Chris wrote an article that was summarizing an interview that appeared in Forbes.com with Mary Wiseman talking about body shaming haters. And I want to give a quick shout out to Dawn Ennis, who has done a fantastic series of articles, interviews with the Discovery cast, particularly the ones with Blue Del Barrio and Anthony Rapp as well. She does them on video, so you should go and watch them. I think I have mentioned her interview with Blue Del Barrio on this show before. And so the article that we published on dailystartreknews.com was talking about that interview and some of the highlights from it. Holy crap, did that blow up for our website, to the point that like we got demonetized because we had suspicious traffic. It kind of blew up, and what's always fun is that you get some negativity in response to that. And a couple of the comments that I got pretty consistently were that basically saying that Tilly's character and her representation is completely unrealistic in Star Trek. And that they're basically they're promoting unhealthy body image, an unhealthy body type. And I just have two things to say about that, and I will say them on record with my face. Number one, if you are coming into my space and talking about like fake like medical expertise as to why they shouldn't put someone who's full figured onto television, you need to back up out, because first of all, unless you're a scientist, you don't get to talk about that stuff. Like if you are a scientist, then you need to go and talk to the television industry, or you need to make a name for yourself as an influencer talking about very generally, body image and portrayal on television. To ever attack or criticize an individual person who has not asked for that feedback is completely inappropriate forever. End of discussion. So anybody who's ever online gone, oh, Mary Wiseman's fat, back out. Like, don't do that. It's not cool, because she's a human person. At the end of the day, she's also been employed by a company to portray a character that they've written to be on your television screen. So it's completely inappropriate to assault that person in any way. Don't do it. The other very common thing that I saw was people talking about this idea that because Starfleet is a military organization, number one, she would have never got through Starfleet Academy, and number two, she should also not be a first officer, because no one would ever listen to her because she got promoted above her station. Both of those things are patently ridiculous, and let me explain why. Number one, we don't know what the criteria is for graduating Starfleet Academy. No one's ever said, no one's ever laid it out, and it is as likely that larger women are expected to graduate. They might actually see them as beneficial, because then you have better diversity, and I don't know, whatever. You don't know what the criteria are for graduating Starfleet Academy. Number two, sorry, I'm getting a little upset over this. Starfleet is not a military organization. It is similar to a current military organization, but it is not military. And if you try to impose 21st century military regulations on something that's happening in the 32nd century to a non-military organization, you are ignorant, and you need to stop doing that, because that's the whole point of science fiction, is that it is an imagining of what a future could be like. So I understand that, like, the ranks and stuff are similar to the US Navy, blah, 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 blah. It's different, it's not the same. So don't use that as an excuse to call Mary Wiseman fat derisively. Don't do that. Um, I'm losing my train of thought because I'm really upset about this. Um, Number 2, one of the comments that I saw was, "How would you feel if someone got promoted ahead of you? You'd never listen to them." First of all, that's happened to me plenty, and I've never been in the military, but in the private sector, that happens all the time. People get promoted above other people all the time, and you know what? When that happens, you still respect the rank that they've been promoted to because they've been put in that position by somebody who knows more than you do. All of that aside, it's very, very clear that the people in this crew will follow her to anywhere. She hasn't been promoted for any number of reasons because, again, we don't know what the criteria are for Starfleet and promotion. But you cannot deny that whenever Tilly says something or suggests something, these people respect her and they will follow her. Regardless of her rank, she is a leader and she shines in difficult situations. She absolutely 100% deserves to be first officer, and everybody else can go blow out an airlock as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, there's my little tiny rant, and that was the last thing that I'm going to end on today. Let's see. Let's see if I've pissed anybody off. Yeah. Sorry, I'm doing the thing where I read the chat. By the way, I wanna make a point that at no point did anybody, actually come after me or, criticize me. I think they tried to be like, "Hey, you're wrong," but there was no like, nobody was ever, you know, uncool to me. In fact, here's the thing that I find really interesting is that, there's this a special breed of internet troll that they really think they're being smart, and they will back up their claims with science or links to, scientific papers or something like that when you miss the whole point. Like, I don't care what you think. Um, I For you to attack somebody, it's just never okay. Just mind your own business and go and do something else. It's not like whatever. There's a specific breed of nice troll, and I don't know if it's only women who experience this, but they're really polite. They're really kind, except that when you state a point, they won't let it go, and they will try and continue a conversation trying to very gently manipulate you into saying that they're right when they're not, and they'll never let it go, and that's kind of an insidious type of troll that I've found, in my travels, which is really hard to point out and to talk about because you can't be like "Hey, look at this screenshot of this dude. He was using abusive language to me." That's not you can't do that because they never do. But but you can still be harassing and you can still be intimidating without ever actually using what looks like overtly harassing or intimidating language. Anyway, we're getting way off sorry, we're getting way off topic for Star Trek, so I apologize that. Um, yeah, basically you all agree with me, which means you're all stars in my eyes. Infinite diversity and infinite combinations. What do you not understand about this? It's, there's a reason that that phrase has taken on a life of its own after Star Trek, because it's a philosophy, it's a way of life, right? It's like, it's whatever. Sorry. Um, actually, Hosen Zarfungal points out that didn't Tilly win the Discovery Marathon? I don't know if she won or she almost won, but yeah, she was on it. The point is that anybody who attacks Mary Wiseman or Tilly in particular for their body type is ignorant. So let's just leave it at that. Anyway, as per usual, I've run over, but I think that's pretty okay for it being the fact that we covered 2 episodes today. Make sure you turn in next week because I will be here on Friday talking about the season finale of Discovery season 3, which is sure to be good. I am looking forward to seeing what Kenneth Mitchell's character gets up to because I think he's going to end up being pivotal, which is fantastic. Um, and um, and yeah, that's it. Next week on the main show, we're doing actually another series of Star Trek stories. And if you haven't tuned into these yet, they're really short, and it's me reading letters that people have written in to me to talk about how like where they came, like how they found Star Trek and why they're Star Trek fans. All of these letters are amazing and they are heartwarming and they all just make me go because there's so much diversity of how people ended up here, and it's wonderful. So make sure you listen to those. They're in the main feed and they'll be here on YouTube as well. And if you haven't already submitted your own Star Trek story, then please do so. If you listen to them, you'll see they're anonymous. So it won't, I'm not going to try and out anybody, but they're really good fun, and people seem to really be inspired by them. If you go into dailystartreknews.com/Star Trek stories, all one word, you can read some of the past, or you can listen to some of the past ones, and then there's a form on there where you can submit your own too. And those are great. So we're taking the week off. We'll be back on Monday, the 11th. But in the meantime, we have some fun things for you to do. So hopefully that will be good. All right. Well, I guess that's it. Happy New Year. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to my little rant. And I hope you guys all have a really wonderful weekend and get 2021 off to a wonderful start. It's been lovely this year, and meeting all of you and having you guys here for the live stream has been really, really wonderful. So that's it. I'll see you next week. Live long and prosper.